and the truth hurts. Like, most people will not be able to accept like the ego that they have right now and like what their identity is, like, truly. Like, I'm so like, you know how a lot of people say that, like, when they talk about themselves, like, like a lot of successful people at least, like, I'm my biggest critic. And it's like they're constantly tweaking like little parts about their personality or their lifestyle to like improve upon it. And it's like, you have to be like that. Like, you can't just be like meandering around and just wondering why you don't have success. It's like, you have to be intentional like with what's going on. And then once you start being intentional, then you'll start getting the results.
Well, Eric, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. So really, before we kind of get into it, I kind of, where you are at right now, we'll get into that. I always start with where it all began. How did you get here? I want to kind of hear your story, not just about like when you started the business, but how did you even get to the point of starting the business?
Got it. So I grew up in a, typical family household that went the whole, like, college, get a job, nice salary, 6 figures. Like, that's like what like we were looking for, at least for like the opportunity I had for my life. And then I realized, like, probably around like 16, like, I just got like a funny feeling that wasn't for me. And I was still going along that path. Oh, I don't know. I had this like weird inkling feeling that it's just like, that doesn't seem like enough. So if that makes sense. Like, I feel like that is just kind of like stagnating almost, and no like disrespect to anybody that wants to do that. It's just, for me personally, my personality is the type of thing that I want some type of challenge, and something has to be happening 24/7. And a lot of like salary jobs, they kind of just flatline and stagnate, and like I just knew that like I couldn't do that. It would just bore me too quickly, because like once I tend to like figure something out, I'm kind of on to the next thing already. But yeah, so I've been wanting to start the business since I was actually 16 years old. I'm 23 right now. And I never really had the courage to do so because I don't come from that entrepreneur background. My parents like are well educated, but not in the way of having their own business. So I had to learn a lot of things myself, like the marketing, sales, communication, accounting, legal stuff. Like, I had to learn everything. And finally, someone actually convinced me to start the business because they were like, you know what, you're not feeling college, you're 2 years in, you're not about this. Like, it's just, I can tell, like, you're not in it. And I was even because I was telling them when I was in class, I was just on my phone the entire time, like doing other stuff that I was more interested in, and like being productive. I wasn't just like sitting and looking at like memes or something. I was being productive, and they're like, why are you even in class? And it's like, I don't know. And they're like, if you don't
There's like a friend that was asking this.
Yeah, they were like concerned because I was like, just not really invigorated by the material or anything like that. And they're like, why don't you like start that business that you were like telling me about? And I'm just like, well, like, I don't know how. Like, I'm kind of scared. Like, I was so nervous about like what could happen. And then after a while, I just was like, you know what, like, what if I just do it? Like, I can always go back to college, and I always have a backup plan. So I did, and then I started working with some clients for free just to like make sure that my skills were there, and that I wasn't even sure about. And like, the funny part is, at that time, I actually had more skill than I thought I did, and I kind of found that out quickly by talking to people with marketing degrees. And I had no idea of the stuff that they, because I didn't get that far into college to know what they weren't teaching in the marketing classes. But people were telling me like, oh yeah, like, our textbooks are from like 10 years ago. It's nuts, man. We know nothing about digital or online. I'm like, what? Like, it just was weird. So I wasn't about it. And then when I finally started the business, got the, free clients and everything like that. And then the results started like happening. And like, I started freaking out and being like, oh my God, like, I can actually do this as like a real business. So then I told the free clients I was with, I was like,
well,
hey,
let's step back. So talk about the free clients. So how did you, like, your friend was like, hey, you need to, do this thing. And like, okay, I guess I'll do it. What was that process of saying, okay, like, I'm going to jump into it?
Got it. Okay. So I was actually working at a cell phone store at the same time of going to college, and I was a store manager. And that was just soul sucking as well. The way that they like ran things was just not how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
It's like, you know, the whole like pushy sales thing is like what they're going
Was it
for.
a larger corporation or a smaller shop?
One of the biggest cell phone network.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, so when I was there, I wasn't really happy with that place either, even though like it was fun and I learned a lot. I learned so much about marketing and sales there because I had to run the store.
You have to actually talk to people and try to sell a product.
Exactly. And that was actually my first sales job.
Yeah.
And then, because I was working like food service and stuff like that before. But then when I finally got to that place, it's like, it was like a playground for me because I'm so interested in like psychology and sociology that I just learned how to communicate with people properly. At least I feel like I'm still getting better. But like doing that, I was actually at not a great point with the new manager. Like I had the same manager for 2 years, and then finally a new manager came in, and let's just say he wasn't the best individual, so me and him didn't get along on multiple things. And within 2 weeks, he started like just writing me up for like random stuff, and the other managers were getting the same thing, and there was talks about him firing the entire district. And he did, except for like 2 managers, I think, like that. But so I actually didn't get fired. I left before he could do that because everybody knew what he was trying to do. Even some of like the upper management was like, okay, this is kind of weird, because I complained about it to HR and I don't know where he's at now. But I was like, I'm not going to be treated like this. I guess this is a good opportunity for me to start the business. And I finally did. I had no income at the time or anything, so I just had to like make it work. And then once I started working with the free clients, I was like, I have to get them results like as quickly as possible.
Well, how do you get to free clients though? Well, like what?
So what got me the free client? Okay, so I just drove through my network and I was just like, who do I know that would just benefit from free work and not lose anything? So like I actually talked to a couple business owners that I knew. One of them was a lawyer, and I was like, hey, you know what? Like your online and digital like experience for everything regarding your business like is a little bit lacking, and like here's the ways that you can improve. And I think that this is what it's going to do for your business. And he's like, so you're going to get me X amount of clients per year or per month or, you know, whatever. And I was like, well, I can't like guarantee that because I'm still new. So I hope you understand, but like, are you willing to work with me? I'll do it for free. We'll see what results you get. And he's like, absolutely. Like, why would I not do that? And I'm like, perfect. So then when I started working with them at first, like I told you before, like I was just so nervous. Like I had no idea if it was going to work or not. And then after working with them about 3 weeks in, they actually got like a high ticket client come in that they were like super excited about. And then I was like, well, you know, was that because they send out like postcards like as well to people. So I was like, okay, was this a digital thing or was it whatever? But right when the person called, they're like, yeah, I saw you like on Google, like you were like #1 or like from like an ad or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it basically was from the digital presence. And I was like, yes. And then they're like, hey, so, you know, can we just do more of that? And I'm like, absolutely. But then I told them eventually, after like working with them for free and a couple other people, they were like more of a monthly thing. I had other one-time projects that I would do of just redoing like their entire website and like search engine optimizing and then setting up their ad campaigns and then just kind of leaving it and trying to train their team on it. And I did all that just like for free, just to try and get case studies. And then after a while, the one-time projects were done. They were great. The lawyer, I asked him, I was just like, hey, like, I know this is kind of like a big step, but are you willing to pay me now? And he's just like, how much are we talking? So then we sat down and like negotiated and stuff. And he was like, okay, like, you know, fair price for like the amount of clients you're bringing me and stuff every month. And then just converted to a paid client. And I was pretty much just doing the exact same work, but now as paid. And it was like an amazing experience. Still my client to this day.
Sweet. So you go from free, you know, doing free work to getting your first client. Really, what happened after that? What's sort of next steps? How did you get more clients on top of that?
So I knew that the main thing that I wanted to have was like case studies and testimonials. Like there's nothing more powerful than that. Like as like marketing and branding people, you're seeing in 2019 that so much people want like social proof behind the brand to say, you know, like there's even that company called Proof where it's like, you know, 3 people just bought this product in the past 27 minutes. Like people want to see that. So I was like, okay, I am going to do more free work if I need to. I don't really want to do that. I want to do paid work, but if I have to, I'll do free work. So what happened was it was about 50-50. I did 50% paid work, and then that ended up being fantastic, and then 50% free work, and then they turned into paid clients. And then it just kind of like
was
grew
that a
from
way
there.
to sort of just fill up your pipeline essentially? So you're like
Like,
doing as much as
yeah.
as much as you could do, and basically if you had like 2 paying clients but that didn't take up all your time, you're like basically how can I fill this with
Oh,
more
I was
work, essentially?
working 24/7. Like I was like, I have to make sure that all these people get amazing results because, you know, it wasn't like a cookie cutter approach. Like I would come to them and I would sit down with them for like hours and strategize their entire marketing plan, stuff that didn't even have to do with digital. Like even because I'm sort of familiar with like, you know, direct mail marketing. I never like did that, but I know like what catches people's attention and stuff. And I was asking them about the direct mail marketing and give them some tips on that. So yeah, I mean, working with these people, I start to get like close to them and almost like, this is why I actually call myself the consultant CMO is because
So
I'm like
say.
like a third party marketing officer that comes in and actually strategizes your whole plan. Now, when I do that, the majority of the time it does end up being just digital is the most like ROI efficient.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, you know, so cheap and you can get so much like reach. But I will tell people if your postcards and your direct mail marketing are work for you, like just continue doing that. Like, why would you stop? But it has to be like worth it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So yeah, that's kind of just how that ended up happening with getting more clients and then using case studies to just get more. And it just kept like compounding. Now, whenever I'm in a meeting, I tell them, I'm like, look, I've worked in, God, I don't even know the number, somewhere between like 16 and 19 different verticals or industries. Like I haven't niched down, and I just tell them, here's where it worked in this industry, here's where it worked in this industry, here's where it, and they're like, those are completely different. I'm like, I know. So then they just look at that.
Do you feel like you need to niche down? Is it important for like who, like, you know, especially for, you know, marketing agencies and marketers, like should they niche down on a very specific thing? Like should you know, because you get both, right? You get consultants, it's like we only do this, or agencies, it's like we only do food. Like, is that important, do you think? Or can you get away with kind of doing a little bit of everything?
So this is an interesting question. I get this question like pretty much every day from just like random people that either starting agencies or just starting a business in general. They're like, should I niche down or should I not? I think it depends on your skill level and how much you're trying to scale. Like not niching down is not scalable. Like you're going to need a lot of like expert people that know how to just market in general using principles and like principles rather than just like these little steps that you do. It's more of like an overarching strategy. For most people that are like starting out, I probably would recommend them like niching down, but taste a few things, like see what they like the best and what they can get results for. So maybe start with like 3 and then maybe niche down to 1. But like if you're just working in like the medical, you know, industry or something like that, and you just work with those people, you're going to have like a replicatable process that you can just repeat for everybody. 100%. So like that is like a good business model.
Generally, it's going to be people in the same industry that are going to recommend you to their friends, which are generally in the same industry too. It's like we do all kinds of things here, but we probably have like 4 industries that we like do a lot more work in comparison, just because it through recommendations after that, and that just kind of grows. So we haven't niched down, but we definitely have that sort of specialty. So for you, you're kind of just going, you're open for like working with anyone pretty much.
Literally anyone. The reason why is because I've so in all the verticals, and this isn't like, I guess this is like like plugging a little bit, but like all the verticals that I've worked with, I haven't failed in one yet. So like I'm not trying to like brag and stuff like that, but it's just like if you use like it's basic principles of how do you get people's attention. How do you basically give them an offer or some type of solution that's going to solve their problem? And then how do you do it like just where they're at? And then like basically by law of familiarity, give them enough value that eventually they just want to work with you. It's almost like guilting them into working with you. You know, it's like you have the leverage at that point 100%. When you give them so much content or whatever it is that they're like, okay, I have to work with this realtor or chiropractor or whatever it is because I trust them the most. I've seen them the most on my feed, and then they seem to want to help me the most. They care about my problem. So it's like I use that across the board, and then it just works with like every industry, no matter what it is. Some of the industries, like I work with a I can't even say the word, chemical company. I really don't even understand what they do.
Yeah.
They gave me like a one liner of like, okay, we do this, and I'm like, I'm not a chemical expert. I don't know what that means, but I can market that. And then we've gotten them pretty like big, substantial clients that are like, energy and oil companies that are quite large.
So then how much about your client, especially, again, going back to if for any marketing person listening, how much should you know about your client? Do you need to know very much about your client? Because a lot of times a client will think you do need to know everything about them. Yeah. And so what is your opinion on that?
I think you should learn as much as you can, because I think every marketer should take that consultant CMO approach of just like really diving into their business and almost caring about their business just as much as them. Like every entrepreneur wants that, but they can't get it. Like when they hire an employee, they're like, why does this person not care as much as me? It's
100%.
Like, it's like, it's not their business.
And
that's why.
That's literally how we even approach it too. It's like we're sort of your in-house, and we've really developed it that way so that, because it's, generally it's always the question, do I hire you or do I hire someone, full-time that's going to show up every day? Yeah. And that's the difficulty. So how do you have a team? Do you do more mainly consulting, setting up sort of marketing campaigns, or how much are you actually running what's going on?
So I have like contractors that I work with. I don't have like an office. There's just no need for it at this point. Like everything's just run digital and remote. But I'm like the overarching like strategy and everything like that. And then when the campaigns are put in place, I'm like so detail oriented that I need it to be exactly how I know I want it to be. And then from there, contractors are like maintain it and like see what to do. Clients always reach out to me. I don't necessarily want them reaching out to contractors directly yet. In the future, I probably will, but I want all communication through me, just because I'm the person that's in the meetings. I'm their point of contact always. Eventually I'll probably hand it off to someone else, but I think that it's like the best approach right now, just because if I was to have like an office and all these other like overhead expenses, I'm going to have to charge people like a lot more. So we'll get there in the future, but as of right now, it's just me taking care of everything and then having contractors come in for help and just maintaining.
So, and obviously, the podcast 10-Year Enterprise, if the whole idea behind it is that going from 0 to 1, right? I'm interested in how do you start, and then, but then it's that whole idea of the next 10 years, that sort of overnight success, but that it took 10 years to get there. So what about, where are you at in terms of like next steps in terms of kind of scaling, and how do you do that? Because if it's just you and you're getting more clients, picking up more clients, how do you deal with all of that? How are you communicating with all of your clients, but also making sure their campaigns are going well? How are you doing all of that?
Yeah, so like the contractors are usually pretty good about like maintaining the campaigns, and they know exactly what I look for like on a daily basis. As far as me checking them, like I will go in and like make sure everything is okay too. Like because you can like move so quick through the menus and I know where everything is, it's not that hard to go check on the campaigns myself. But as far as scaling, I'm actually going to build like multiple streams, or I guess you could call it multiple streams of income, but it's basically just multiple ways to deliver the service. So it's basically going to be, number one, done for you. You want me to do everything for you. You don't even want to think about it. That's what we're doing right now. Eventually, I want to, I've started to move a little bit into more like consulting and training, where it's like either I get on a Skype group call with you and your team, and I have like a 3-hour chat with you on how to do what I'm doing. And that can only like get you so much. So it usually needs to be like a couple sessions at least. And then they have like a little bit of their bearings, and maybe they can figure it out.
Or they can't, and then they hire you full time.
Exactly, and that's usually what it ends up being. Is just like after I explain like everything, they're like, yeah, we don't have the resources to do this, or like we just don't want to, so like you do it. But consulting and training is good. I haven't had this happen yet, but I'm looking forward to it eventually. Is I want to be like flown out to like someone's office and do like a weekend training with like their entire team and really like dig into everything. And then I could do that now, like no problem. But going into that and then just letting their team take it from there. So it's kind of like almost done with you. The third thing that I'm still working on, it's going to take a long time, is for the people that either can't afford that or don't want either of those services, I want to have like a video training program. A lot of people are coming out with courses and like all that type of stuff. I want to make mine a little bit different, where I've noticed a lot of courses and training programs just don't have the right content, or they focus on like just different things. It's just not like detailed enough. So I really want to get in there and the training program would be quite expensive because basically I'm teaching you exactly how to do what I do.
Yep.
Probably after watching it, you could just like start my business at this point, if you really wanted to. But I'm going to be doing that, and that's going to be like a higher ticket product. But then if they don't want to work with me on a monthly basis or a one-time consultative basis, they can just buy the training program, watch it at their convenience. Their whole team can watch it. So it's basically those 3 levels, just so that I have everything available depending on what someone wants.
So that's sort of big picture, right, in terms of where you're going at. So let's talk a little bit about sort of personal brand and how important is that, because I know you're kind of and one of the reasons why I was even interested in having you on the show is because you're definitely putting a lot of energy into that and going very broad, making sure that you're on a lot of platforms rather than just sticking to Instagram. You're on YouTube. I know you even had you talked about YouTube as sort of the single platform that everything trickles down from, which is, I think, right on at this point too, because we're talking about, you have to have long form content if you want to do content at scale, right? So you obviously do a podcast too. I just saw David Metzler.
Yeah. You got it.
He's awesome. That was a great interview, by the way.
Thank you.
That dude is like so solid too. Like what I like about him, particularly in comparison to say, any of the other kind of big names out there, is one, he's older, so there's even more experience, and two, he's very chill about his whole approach. It's not intense. It's more of just like, this is how I do it, and this is what works. What is the thought process behind your personal brand and, having a podcast and doing all of these things as well? Why is that so important?
Okay. So with the personal brand and pretty much everything that I do, I'm very like results oriented. So like if it doesn't bring results, I usually like either, and it can be long term, doesn't have to be just short term, but like it has to be like with intention or some type of purpose. So the personal brand is a lead generator. It's just like branding. So if I'm going against another agency and I send them my YouTube channel, they pick me like every time. Like it's just because they're like, wow, I watched all of your videos. I did like a binge, and like I feel like I know you, and the videos basically sold them already. And then by the time they reach out to me, they're like, yeah, this other company, they seem to kind of understand me, but like they didn't really try that hard and whatever. Their like pitch and proposal was just really confusing, and it was just like a lot of like a mess for most agencies that like I'm kind of like going against. And then they watch the videos and they're just ecstatic because they're like, I learned a lot of stuff that like I should probably know as a business owner in 2019, but I don't want to do it. So you take care of it. But personal brand is probably like number one thing that everybody needs to have. Everyone pretty much has one anyway. Everybody usually has a Facebook or Instagram account on their own, but it's just like start using the platform.
But they don't think of it as their personal brand though,
they
right?
Don't. They're like a consumer instead of a producer.
So go talk a little bit about that, because one thing I think it was on Gary the other day. He was talking about how we used to talk about reputation. People talk about reputation all the time, especially before sort of digital era. Reputation was a big deal, and it still is, right? Reputation is it's everything. But from a old school business guys, they always would be like, reputation, great, fine. They understand that term. The moment you say personal brand, they're like, oh no, I don't want to put myself out there like that. I'm not. They think it actually is a negative effect on their reputation rather than just a platform to push out their reputations. Personal brand and reputation is the same thing. So, talk a little bit about that. How are you kind of positioning yourself? How do you position yourself? Because most people are like, well, I have. What am I supposed to do? Like, I don't. Post pictures of what content? What am I supposed to say? What is your approach there?
So my thing is just like basically what solutions or what things are people like looking for? Like how do you add value to their life? No one is going to watch a video that doesn't like help them in some way, either by entertaining them or educating them. Like, and usually you want to do a little bit of both, just so you get like the biggest audience you can. As far as like personal branding, it's just like it's a must. Like it has to happen. But when you add value to people, just try and get in their shoes of like, when I make a marketing video, I'm like, okay, people are trying to make money, they're trying to get more customers, and they don't know how to do it. So it's just like, answer that. And then in the video, I try to do it in like a pretty short format where it's like 15 minutes or so. And then by the end of the video, I want them to understand it as clearly as I do. That's like the goal. It might not happen, but like I try to explain everything in such a simple way that like I get that all the time. When business owners watch my videos, they're like, wow, like people have tried to explain this to me before like 10 different times, like my staff, and I just never understood it. When you explained it in the video with like your slides and pictures and things like that, like I understand. So that was the whole like purpose of it, is to explain to them basically what I'm going to be doing and why, and then just like selling them through the video. And then
so do you, all the content that you put out there and sort of put it out for free, you actually will send that to clients to be able to convince them that you're the real deal and what you're saying is actually going to happen?
Because when you reach out to a client, they get hit up by so many marketers that they're just annoyed at this point. I get people like reaching back out to me and being like, I like your approach was a little bit different. Like you were actually like trying to help me. And I was like, yeah, because these people just try to go for the close like right away. It's just like, do you want to buy my services for $5,000 or whatever? And the person's like, no, I don't know you. Like, what is this? Don't spam me. But me, I'm like, okay, so I noticed on your website there's this, on your Facebook is this. You're not using ads. You're on the 5th page of Google. Kind of like a little bit of like an audit. And then they're like, wow, okay, I need a lot of help. And I'm like, hey, here's like 3 videos on how you can do that yourself, and just leave it at that. And they're like, so you're not going to sell me? I'm like, I mean, if you want to talk to me about that, we can, but like, it's just like, there you go. And then, I obviously know in the back of my head that if they watched those videos and tried to learn everything, it would take them like 3-4 years.
Totally.
So it's like, obviously they're going to reach back out to me and be like, hey, so like I watched your videos. Can you help me with these things? And I'm like, perfect. Then I get on the phone with them. And then usually within, like 15-20 minutes, they're already talking about like, hey, can you send me like a document, like an agreement of like what we're going to do based on like what solutions you think. And then I'm like, yeah, so we're going to do Google ads, we're going to do Facebook ads, and this and this and this. And then here's like the, like the total price. What do you think? And then they're just like, sounds good. Like it's very simple. Like I don't do pretty much my entire like calls with all my clients are me just asking questions, and I just question after question. I'm almost just interviewing them. And then once I get all the information, I will there's been a couple people I've told them, I'm just like, I don't think I'm the right guy for this, but here's another person that I think is more suited, especially with like e-commerce. E-commerce I'm still getting a handle on just because it is like global, right? So it's a little bit harder to sometimes get the right targeting and things like that, and it takes a lot more money. So, and sometimes people aren't willing to like have those big budgets to test 100%. Things. So with e-commerce, like I recommended, there was a guy that was selling, I forget even what they were selling, but I recommended them to like a really good e-commerce agency that I knew, and that's all they do. And then they were like, wait, so like you're referring me to somebody else? And I'm like, yeah, I can't help you as well as they can. Like you're like, I'm just not going to work with somebody that's like, I can't get the best results for. Like if I did, I might have maybe gotten like mediocre results for them. Just that's not my specialty. Like my other stuff, I usually work with, well, I've worked with product businesses too, but like service businesses seem to be like a thing that I like working with a lot, just because I like the business model. Like product businesses, there's so much like complexity and stuff like that.
Whole different game.
Yeah. So I don't even know if I'd ever do a product business myself.
And product business is so different too when you're dealing, the content you're having to create is so radically different, and if you don't have the time, energy, budget, whatever it is, like it's and content in general, it takes time and energy, but when you have to products, it takes more creatively driven content, and that's just a whole different game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like at this point, like what's the next sort of the next sort of 5-10 years look like for you?
So I want to start actually a couple more things. I can't talk about all of them necessarily, but I want to, so I have my marketing thing right now, and I'm going to like branch out into those 3 different like ways to deliver my service like I talked about. And then I want to branch off into other things that go like kind of hand in hand with that. Like I don't typically focus on media and content. Like usually the clients provide that to me. And because I have no way, unless I flew to like their office and like recorded content with them, I just can't do that. I mainly focus on just digital advertising. And if they need website design or SEO, I can do that if they ask for it. if they happen to need it, like I'll do it, but I mainly focus on the ads because that gets like the most results. But like I think I do want to move into more content and media just because it's so important now that I'll probably have a separate thing for that, where it's just like a media production company. That obviously takes a lot more cash, so I'm gonna have to do that, or like work on the first one first to be able to pump cash into this media production company. And then after that, like, I mean, super long term, like I want to get into like real estate and just bunch of different opportunities, start doing like joint ventures with people, build up the personal brand, have products through there that I can sell, possibly like apparel, like just like random stuff. Like I just want to try a lot of things out and see like what I like.
But this is sort of that
foundation, absolutely,
step for that.
And then building this up will help all the other businesses. It's kind of like creating this, like, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it, like a lead generating machine for all the other 100%. Stuff. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to be like, because I have like the marketing background, I know how to market the businesses that I want to start.
So, well, yeah, it all ends up coming to sales, which is first derived at the marketing side of things. And so really once you can sell pretty much. Once you can sell something, once you know how to sell something.
Funny enough, actually, okay, so you did remind me. I want to add that to the business. So that is something I'm going to add over the next, probably year or so, is I've noticed that a lot of business owners are either uncomfortable with selling or they don't know how. And usually it's like they do know how to sell like their stuff because they've been doing it for so long, but then when it comes to actually like closing a deal with like one of their customers, they get just uncomfortable with like trying to upsell them. And I'm like, no, you have to understand, like I frame it in a different way. I'm like, if you're doing business with integrity, which everybody should, you're providing a solution to their problem. Like, so like, are you gonna like not give them the solution? Like, you have to upsell them if it's good for them. You know what I mean? So I think I'm going to create programs and sales training, like 3-day sales trainings or something like that, just because the marketing can only help you so much. Like, if I send you 100 leads and you can't convert any of them, there's no point. You know what I mean? So it's like, I need to be able to train your team to properly like close the deal, especially in a 2019 fashion, not in like a pushy, weird used car salesman type of way that a lot of people think sales is. To me, sales is asking questions and discovering what the problem is, and then just recommending a solution and then handling objections after that. Because everybody's gonna have objections when it comes to pulling out their wallet. They're always gonna be like, no, if they have resistance, right? But if you logically and emotionally like help them figure out like how to make the decision, like if it's right for them, and sometimes it's not, but if you can help them and guide them through that process, then like the person is so happy because they're like, okay, you got me to make the decision of something that's actually going to help me. Thank you. Like I have people say that all the time. Like, thank you for re-explaining it and kind of making sure that I understand and like I actually like helping me go through with it rather than just kind of like. Because online and digital is so scary for people that they're just like you were saying, like no personal brand, like I'm not about that. But then when it comes to guiding them through it, then they're like, thank you for helping me pull the trigger.
How and how does that help? Because a lot of times I think it's, as an agency, sometimes it's like, we're the experts, we want to come in here, fix your problems, but we don't want you to actually, like there's almost a lack of wanting to understand, or even like the fact that you give out free content, like you're giving so much away. So talk like a little bit about that and again, I think it was in relation to this, you used almost sort of guilting them into it. I think that's a really important distinction when you're giving so much that they actually are like, well, we kind of got to use you if we can because you're the right person. You've given so much. So talk a little bit about that strategy as a whole, because I just think the idea of free and giving things away without expecting anything in return is huge, right?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of people comment on that where they're just like how are you going to make any money if you like give all your stuff away? And I'm like, no, that's how you make the money. Like if you're trying to hold on to everything, like I just try to think about how would I like to be treated? Like if I don't know something and like I'm trying to hire someone to do it, I want them to fully explain every detail, because I'm so detail oriented and like analytical that I'm like, if you don't explain it to me, like I won't trust you. Like I need all the information. I also need to know that you know what you're talking about and can explain it simply and like help me through that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just think like, okay, that's how I want to be treated. So I explain to them every detail. And sometimes I even go so far to try and explain every little detail in like a simple way, that people are just like, okay, you can stop. That's fine. We're done. Let's go ahead and do this.
Yep.
I don't need any more information. You sound like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But giving the stuff away for free and helping them understand is the way to sell. And like I was telling you earlier, like either you're educating or you're entertaining people. It's usually one of those, or both. But when you do that, people just feel more comfortable. Like they're sold through the content, and then after they watch it, they're just like, okay. But then the reason, like people ask me like, well, why don't they just do it themselves then? Time, money, like there's a billion reasons why they won't do it themselves. They don't have the skill. Like it's going to take them a couple of years to figure it all out, and like day after day, and they don't have the time. So
it's kind of like, it's great. You can post for free on Facebook. That doesn't mean much. Exactly. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like, and I think that's some. I think we're still in that world too, where there's certain people, like especially when you get to the older clients that are like, well, it's, why did I pay you to do all this? It's free. It's like, well, yeah, but the mountains of time that it's spent to actually make this campaign and the strategy and all of that work together, right? So coming to close, what would you say, kind of being where you are right now, could you say to yourself like literally right before you started the business, sort of one piece of advice you would have given yourself?
Okay, so this is where I want to dive into personal development a little bit, because I think this might even be like the most important thing for me to say like on this podcast. Identity, I talk about this on my personal brand. I think identity is one of the biggest things, like just for life in general, of figuring out like who you are, what you want to do, what you're about, what your values are. And your identity is the core of everything. So when it comes to starting a business, a lot of people have fears about like, oh, like if people are going to judge me, like, do I have the skills? What about like, success barriers, all these different things. And it's like, all those relate to your identity. So if you get the core foundation taken care of, like the outside will like manifest. And the best way I've heard people describe this is, if you ask someone that's extremely like skilled and passionate at something, like a runner or like a basketball player or something like that, and they you try and figure out like, how do you have the work ethic, the motivation, discipline, like passion, everything like that to do what you do? And like when you really like dive into how they think, like they don't know any different. So that's their identity. So someone who is lazy, that like just doesn't have a work ethic, that's part of their identity. And they're like, why do I like not have success? I'm like, it's because your core identity is you don't have a work ethic. You don't think of yourself like that, and
you don't identify yourself as a lazy person, right? Like, I mean, I say that because that's actually something that I had to come to the terms with. Before I started this, I was like, I'm actually like, I feel smart and I have a lot of book knowledge, but I'm actually really lazy and I don't apply myself. And that's, you can't, until you do that, right? You can't go anywhere.
Exactly.
So you were saying, I kind of cut you off, but identity.
Yeah, so the way that it, like the best way to do that is ask other people basically what they think about you, get like feedback from that of like how you are. And I almost create like, it's almost like a movie character sheet of like, who are you now, and like who do you want to be? And then now you have these two pieces of paper of like your vision, and then like what you are now, and then you basically just ruthlessly cut out anything that doesn't fit your vision of what you want to be. So if you're like, it's the same thing with the gym. If you're trying to get like 6-pack abs, you got to cut out sugar and like all these other things. Like that's how you achieve the vision. And it's more about removing things than it is about adding things. Everybody thinks that they have to just add all these like complex ideas and strategies and workout plans and diets. It's just like, no. Simplify it, start removing things, and then you'll have more mental like brain power to be able to work on that vision and not be so like fatigued by it, like trying to get there. And it's not going to seem so scary because you're just simplifying everything. So I think like basically mindset and identity is the core like aspect of like just starting a business, or just honestly having a happy life in general. A lot of people don't know, especially in this era with like social media and like so much I mean, branding and advertising kind of telling you who you are, like telling you your identity. It's like, no. You have to figure out your identity and then tell the world. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, I think the podcast, David Meltzer, when I was listening to it, he talked, one of the things he talked about very related was that idea of, I think he would say like, 2 minutes per day is more powerful than 2 hours once a week. And I think that's so true, because we don't, a lot of times we don't attach that. It's like we go hard for 2 hours and it's like, oh, that was difficult, and then yield any results, rather than even being so like tunnel vision, just doing this amount of time every single day, and then it completely changes the game, right?
Yeah, it's just having that like discipline to be able to do that, though, because again, like with social media and everything, all this stuff is great, but it does alter people in the way of like they can't focus, and they, they're just so like their brain is so scrambled that they're all over the place. So it's like if you can get the mental discipline to like figure out your identity and also be truthful with yourself, because a lot of people wonder like why they have these success barriers, or they self-sabotage, or they just can't figure out why they're having the problem. And it's like in the back of your head, you probably do know that you're just not doing the right things.
Self-awareness is key, right?
Yeah. It's like if you did the right things, then you would get the result. Like it's that simple. Like people ask me all the time in my DMs, they're just like, oh, like I've been I get questions that are just so ridiculous. Like, I've been working on my business for 3 weeks now and I'm not a millionaire. Like, what? I'm like, what did you expect? Like you're like, I mean, you're not going to be a millionaire in like 3 weeks, just regardless, but also you're not doing the right steps.
And fuck you, dude. Like, I'm like doing this every single day.
I know. I feel like it like angers me. I'm like, you have no idea what this is like.
Yeah. So, I'm just like, I've been doing this for 5 years, like you need to put in some more time, and you need to understand that that's some patience, because a couple weeks aren't going to do anything, right?
And usually, like, unfortunately, it comes back to me either telling them that, like, of just like, you need to get your life and identity together, or I just like can't even respond, because I'm just like, I will go off on this person right now. Like, I can't. So.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just the lack of awareness that they haven't been truthful with themselves, just in the same way where it's like I need to admit, like, I'm actually lazy. I'm not able to apply myself. So how can I begin to rewire that? Because it takes some rewiring. It really does, especially if you've been doing it for so long. Yeah,
and the truth hurts. Like, most people will not be able to accept like the ego that they have right now, and like what their identity is. Like, truly, like, I'm so like, you know how a lot of people say that, like, when they talk about themselves, like, like a lot of successful people at least, like, I'm my biggest critic. And it's like they're constantly tweaking like little parts about their personality or their lifestyle to like improve upon it. And it's like, you have to be like that. Like, you can't just be like meandering around and just wondering why you don't have success. It's like you have to be intentional, like, with what's going on. And then once you start being intentional, then you'll start getting the results. Like, it's
that weird, like, Jocko Willink talks about discipline equals freedom, something like that. And for the longest time, I was like, for me particularly, like, I didn't want to be disciplined, because I thought I didn't want to be a slave to discipline. I didn't want to be like, rigid. I wanted to be flexible and movable, but I realized it does a complete opposite. And actually, you do gain everything if you can be hyper disciplined. It's
exactly
crazy.
You create a system or a process for you to not fail. So this is actually a good tip too for a lot of people, is when I was talking earlier about removing something rather than adding something, it's like, if you want to get up at 6 a.m. every morning, don't put your phone right next to your bed where you can just like pick it up and turn it off. Put it across the room, so it's literally impossible for you to not wake up. Make it impossible for you to fail. Like, that's like, or at least as close to that as humanly possible. So it's like, I did this a while ago, where it's like, I noticed myself kind of just like watching one YouTube video to learn something, but then all of a sudden those recommended videos pop up and 100%. You go on like a 3-hour YouTube binge. So then I realized, I was like, what if I can get a thing that just like blocks that, so it's not even possible for me to do that? So now I have this Google Chrome extension that will not show me recommended videos, doesn't show me comments, doesn't show me anything except for like my subscriptions. And I also unsubscribe from like everybody except for like key things. I got so much more done, like within like a day or like a week. I started just being like way more productive. So it's like, create a system. It's the same thing as like, it's going to be really difficult for you to lose weight if you constantly have like donuts around the house. Like, your willpower is limited. So it's like, give yourself as much, like, don't give yourself decision fatigue. That's why you hear like, these Instagram things of like, Mark Zuckerberg wears the same thing every day. It's like, like, don't go that far, but like, try and set up a system so it's like you don't have to make decisions on little things that don't matter.
I think that's the big misunderstanding with people that are really like executing on such a high level. The people that aren't assume that they somehow just have way more discipline than them, and in fact they just realize that they don't have much discipline, and so they limit themselves and just literally push those things out of their life, where most of us, like most people, just can't do that. It's like they got to have, the little things to reward them at the end of their day, or whatever it is. We tend not to want to just limit those, right?
Yeah, and like this is like probably going to be amazing for a lot of people, like just knowing this. Lazy people can be potentially some of the most successful people on the planet. They're going to find the easiest, most efficient way to do everything.
Totally.
So it's just like that. Like, I'm pretty sure Bill Gates described himself like that, where he's just like, I'm just extremely lazy and I just want to find like the quickest and best way to do it.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And then like, because you're so efficient with it, you're going to be able to get like a lot more done.
Yeah.
Like I think of myself, I don't really think of myself as lazy, but it's like, I think of myself as like efficient like that, where it's like that's why when I strategize, I'm like, okay, how can I get from A to B, like the quickest and like the best way without like taking shortcuts and stuff. And then usually I get there a lot quicker than I thought. Like I'm like, okay, this is going to take 2 weeks, but then I'm like, oh, it took 4 days. Like how did this happen? I don't know.
So, where can people find you? What do you want to, if you audience right now, a little really directly sort of salesy pitch for you?
Shameless plug. Yeah. Oh yeah. So ericrebelo.com is my website, my YouTube channel. You can just search my name, Eric Rebelo. And then on Instagram in particular, it was taken, so I had to put Eric J, the letter J, Rebelo. Okay. And basically those are like my platforms. I am on everything technically, but I focus on YouTube and Instagram. And like you mentioned earlier, like YouTube is the origin content because it's like long form and then you can cut it up into little pieces for everything else. So YouTube is probably the #1 place to go. And I haven't been consistent with it lately because I've been like working so much, but like I was doing like weekly videos for a while on just various things about marketing, entrepreneurship. I also want to help starting entrepreneurs start service businesses. Like I was talking about earlier, like product businesses are a little too complex, and then you have to take sales tax. And there's just all this like mess. Service businesses are so straightforward that like anybody can start one, and pretty much everybody's good at something. So it's like I want to help people with that too, because not everyone is like that watches my videos cares about marketing. They're just like, hey, I want to be a graphic designer.
How do I start? How do I do something?
Exactly. And then the funny thing is I even thought about that, where it's like if I help people start some type of service business, they can reach out to me in like 2 years and be like, hey, I want you to do my marketing. You know what I mean? It's kind of just, it's all like lead generation. But I really hope like the content that I have on YouTube helps a lot of people, just with like everything, especially the mindset stuff. Like, cause the tactics, like you can kind of learn from everybody. Like, you know what I mean? They're pretty straightforward. Like every once in a while you get like a little golden nugget of like, oh, I didn't know how to do that. But the mindset stuff, sometimes the way that certain people explain it, like people that resonate with my personality, there's probably a lot of people that don't resonate with my personality at all, and that's completely fine. But the people that do, I explain it in such a way that they finally have that like epiphany and like their life changes forever. Like that's what I think about, where I'm like, that could literally happen, where someone could just watch one YouTube video and then because of one thing that I said, they finally got it and did like a 180 with their life.
Totally.
So
sweet. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. Yeah, it's awesome.
Dude, I appreciate you having me on. It was like super fun. You got the like amazing setup here. It looks super legit.
Thank you.
But yeah, again, thanks for having me on.
Cool. Thanks, man.